Australian Aviation Podcast, the official podcast of Australian aviation, unpacking the latest insights, developments and issues impacting Australia's aviation sector.
Hello everybody, my name is Adam Thorne and welcome to the Australian Aviation Podcast. I will begin with some very important breaking news. As you will have known, I've tried to spend the last couple of years building Jake Nelson, my co-host, up into a genuine celebrity. And last week we had a breakthrough. I don't want to say any more. I'm going to hand it over to the man himself. Say hello and tell the listeners, viewers, what I'm talking about.
Hello, listeners and viewers. I wouldn't call this breaking because it happened last week, but regular viewers of the ABC's The Business might have noticed me in a nicer outfit that I'm wearing now, though that's not hard, talking about the developments around Boeing with the Trump tariffs. In retaliation for the tariffs, China ordered basically a halt to all imports of Boeing aircraft and asked that they stop and asked that Chinese airlines not bring in American parts. And so ABC's The Business was interested in what that meant for aviation, and for some reason they asked me about it.
I mean, is this the first time you've been on, because obviously you're a star of the stage. Is that the first time you've been on TV, like proper TV?
Adam, I was on Mastermind.
Oh, yeah, yes, of course. You were on Mastermind. Yeah, I forgot about that. But this is the first time you've been interviewed as a news person on TV.
It's weird getting interviewed instead of being the one doing the interviewing.
Yeah, I could say you did absolutely amazingly well. You walked into the next day into the office. People gave you a round of applause.
Yeah,
I got him a couple of donuts and a warm hot chocolate and gave him a hug. We did a post on the internal workplace thing. I mean, everyone was queuing over you. It was your finest hour. You were exceptional.
I've been having a lot of finest hours, Adam.
Well, you have to be fair. But no, Jake is now breaking through into the mainstream.
And if anyone's interested in looking at my thoughts on Boeing for some reason, go check it out. It's on the ABC's The Business YouTube. It's also up on iView for a while at least, I think. And thanks to the team from The Business for reaching out. We're happy to speak to you guys again anytime.
And we're happy as well if you're from another TV channel. If you're from would you do Sky News?
It would be thematically appropriate, wouldn't it?
Yeah, very good joke there. So ABC, is it Channel 9, 10, 7, SBS?
Yeah.
We've done ABC now. What we need to do is get you on all of these things.
On the interview circuit, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Or maybe, yeah. So if you are a major broadcaster and you do need a guest that knows something about aviation, don't talk to me because he does all the work. But we can get Jake on.
Yeah, and it was an interesting topic as well because the China is one of the biggest markets in the world for new aircraft. It was, I think, before the palaver with the 737 MAX, it was accounting for 40% of 737 orders or something like that. Growing market, going to account for a huge percentage in the near future. And, for Boeing to be effectively shut out of that is as I said on the ABC, a kick in the guts for them.
Yeah, it was also amazing because when you did it as well, you had enough really detailed bits for if there were any av geeks watching, they would have been impressed. But you also did it in plain English so that the rest of people could understand. It was masterful. It was ridiculously good. So well done.
Thank you, Adam.
Right.
I could stand to hear that more often.
What are you on about? I'm always nice to you. I'm always nice to you. You get away with murder working for me.
That doesn't mean it can't be increased.
Well, whatever. I was very nice to you. I was trying to say. Anyway, if we got actually no, I want to do the next shout out because we've got an important shout out for those of you watching on YouTube. This is why I've got my half-broken laptop in front of me. Today, as we record this Tuesday, what date is it?
22nd.
22nd of April.
Detail-oriented, I am.
Detail-orientated. There you go. We are launching the Australian Aviation Awards, like the Oscars, but better. The idea is you go on our website and you can either enter yourself or you can nominate somebody else. And what that nomination means is that you put in a worthy person and they will get an email basically kind of giving them a nudge to enter. We have got lots of categories for both individuals and groups. I'm actually going to read them all out so that we give a good plug here. So for the individuals, we've got Aviation Safety Professional of the Year, Engineering Professional of the Year, Executive of the Year, Female Aviation Leader of the Year, SME, Female Aviation Leader of the Year, Large Business, Professional Pilot of the Year, Recreational Pilot of the Year, Rising Star Large Business, Rising Star SME, RPAS Pilot of the Year, that's drones to you and me, and Young Pilot of the Year. As we go into groups, I'm going to rattle through them. We've got Aerial Service Business of the Year, Airline of the Year Domestic, Airline of the Year International, Airport of the Year, Aviation Support Business of the Year, Best Innovation of the Year, Brand or Marketing Campaign of the Year. There's a lot of the years. Defence Support Business, we won't say of the year anymore. EMS Business of the Year, Flight Training Business, Industry Association, Manufacturing or Maintenance Business, Remotely Piloted Aircraft Business, that's drones again, Rotary Wing Business, Safety Innovation, Startup, Sustainability Initiative of the Year, and Training and Mentoring Programme of the Year. Basically, pretty much everything. So,
and of course, at the end of the night, we've got our Australian Aviation Award Winner of the Year
Yeah, exactly. It's called the Excellence Award, which is like the Champion of Champions. It's the big prize of the night. Now, obviously, we are not there. The same tip I always give you. We're not there for you next to you all year. It's not the Oscars. We can't just watch the film and decide how good it is. So when you do this, the more detail you can give, the more evidence, the more examples, the better. Because initially we get however many hundreds of entries, and we go through as a team, and our events team go through, and we go through and we whittle them down into like a bunch of kind of shortlisted nominees, and then they go off to the judges to make the decision. So the more effort you can put into it, the better it is. But the more nominations we can get, the better. The whole thing culminates in a fancy pants black tie dinner in Sydney on Thursday, the 14th of August. So even if you don't get nominated or you don't get shortlisted, you can still come along. It's a really good chance to network, have a slap-up meal. You get to meet Make. You get to meet me, and also the star of the hour, Jake, as well. So I mean, that's worth every cent.
And of course, we've got the Australian Aviation Summit coming up.
We've not announced that yet. Whoa,
we had one last year.
We did, so it's a good chance it's going to happen this year. It's probably going to happen, but well, let's keep our powder dry, or whatever they call it. For a couple of weeks. But yeah, that's coming up.
We might have a summit this year.
Anyway, basically, if you want to go, the actual website is australianaviation.com.au/Australian-aviation-awards. Just put it in Google, Australian Aviation Awards. It will come up. It will send you there. You've got plenty of time to work on your nominations. I don't know if they've got the... it's not got the date on it. You got a few months anyway. So, anyway, the sooner you can get cracking on with your entry, the better. Have we got any other shout-outs?
We
heard from action, whatever.
We heard from Hayden McDonald, our good friend who has lent us this model to take care of the Jabiru J120. He says, "G'day, you two. Thank you so much for holding on to my model for me. I'm looking forward for it to join the AA Airlines fleet. As you can see,
already there, mate.
It's
already
here on the
pride
table.
of place in the fleet.
And we will be keeping it safe until you are ready to recollect it." We also had a comment from our former colleague Jordan the Great. Who last week, of course, we brought the inspirational tale of him coaching this ragtag band of misfits all the way to the top of the water polo scene with, I believe, a dog. Jordan just says, "Go UNSW water polo," which makes me think that actually his team might have been the snooty rich kid team.
Maybe. So I did get an update from him on how this went. So basically, he used to be a athlete, is what he keeps saying. He was an athlete, professional water polo player. He retired, and now he coaches this team of high school girls. They went to WA for the big national tournament. He gave it a big talk up. Apparently, they finished 9th, which is good-ish. I think I'm sure that's probably. I don't know how many it was out of.
If they were in fact the snooty rich kid team, then they probably were defeated by 8 ragtag bands of misfits.
I'm sure the decency conquered in the end. But anyway, a good time was had by all. Much more interesting though. So he coaches this team of school kids basically, but they've got a WhatsApp group which is him and all the mums. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, obviously, he's quite a good-looking guy. From what I gather, this WhatsApp group is just the mums flirting with him. I reckon this is the whole reason he's got into the coaching. But anyway, one of the mums in the group, and he sent me the screenshot, actually just referred to him as she was flirting with him as Jordan the Great. So I don't know if he's been like using that term in the group, or if one of the mums, desperate to impress him, has been listening to this rubbish to get some kind of intel. Maybe that's what's happened.
Well, look, if mum who likes Jordan,
let's call her Sally. I just made that up. Go on.
Sally, hypothetically, if you have been listening to the Australian Aviation Podcast, I don't know, introduce yourself to him as Sally. That'll
He's also married, so, look, don't touch. Can I even say that? No, anyway, he's married, so you can flirt with him. But anyway, nothing more, mate. He's a married man. He's off the market.
As I expect would be some of the mums, if not all of them.
What a sordid mess this whole thing is. Right, anyway,
the steamy world of water polo.
The steamy world of water polo. God. Anyway, so he was our former video producer person. We have a number of other video producing people. We spoke last time about Jacob the Pending, which is the nickname you've given him, because I put too much pressure on you to come up with a nickname. So you said we're going to call him forever Jacob the Pending. So it was like a kind of like a self-referential joke. But we do have, firstly, I would say when we talked about our two new video producers, I didn't mention Damon. I felt really bad about that last week. Damon's actually in the room right now recording this, so he's actually the most important person. So I'm very sorry for not giving you a shout out. We've got two new video people. Have you come up with a nickname for them to introduce them to the mythos of your world? Or are you still going to do the joke of, I don't force it, all that's rubbish?
Well, I mean, don't force it.
Yeah.
But also, I do think I saw a sulfurous pit that Damon crawled out of to emerge from the depths of hell, the Damon that he is. So that might be it, but we're going to have to workshop it.
So basically, at the moment, the kind of a preliminary thought is that he's like some kind of a kind of creature from the undergrowth or something.
Yeah, a demon.
A demon?
Yeah.
So it's Damon the Demon. Does that work? I mean, it's
or just
your
the
thing.
demon. I don't know. It's
the demon.
We're workshopping this.
Well, we at least made progress rather than it just being me. You haven't got an idea. So that's okay. Well, we're making some sort of progress. I will come back to you on this every week. You've got two names you need to come up with.
Again, you cannot force this.
All right. Have we got any other shout outs, hellos, commenters, anything like this?
No, we should probably get to the news at some point.
Okay. All right then.
At some point.
All right, you're the presenter, are you? You know what? I've just had a thought, a bolt from the blue. I think we should talk about news. Go on. What we got? What are we talking about?
Well, we should probably address, first of all, this month's coveted Huey Award.
Explain what the Huey is for people that haven't been following this, people with lives and girlfriends and things.
The Huey is the coveted award for the most reliable airline of the month, according to the official BITRA data, as interpreted by me at your request. You can see here, if you're watching on YouTube, this very fetching trophy featuring a picture of Huey Lewis, because it is, of course, for the airline that will get you back in time. Now, for the past few months, it has been claimed by Virgin Australia, the past 3 months in a row, because they had, for December, January, February, a trifecta of trifectas, beating Qantas Group on on-time performance, on-time arrivals, on-time departures, and cancellations. So you
gave it to them 3 months in a row. Did we get any kind of kickback from Virgin? Any money or?
No.
We are open
not
to
yet.
bribes, unless you're from Media Watch. I'm joking.
It may still be in the mail. Now, this month, we have had a little twist in the tale.
Hello.
So once again, Virgin beat Qantas. Virgin as a whole beat Qantas as a whole on on-time arrivals and on-time departures. Was a bit behind Qantas on cancellations. Now, cancellations were a little bit high for the past month. This is primarily due to Tropical Cyclone
Alfred. Which is fair enough. I think as
enough.
Excuses go, a tropical cyclone, I think you can all have that, to be fair.
Yeah, and, Virgin has said that 84% of all of its cancellations for the month of March were due to ex-Tropical Cyclone Alfred. There was also a pretty high percentage probably affecting Qantas, because Qantas Group particularly, because more than half of Jetstar's domestic network touches Queensland.
Yeah.
So that would have led to a high number of cancellations. So Virgin had 5.4% cancellations for the month. Qantas had 5.2, Jetstar had 5.1. So a high month for cancellations, again, due to a tropical cyclone Alfred. 5% of all airlines' flights were cancelled for the month. But there was a big glaring outlier in all of this.
Go on.
And that was Virgin Australia Regional Airlines. The regional arm of Virgin, as the name would imply, VARA for short, operating mainly out in Western Australia. Now, Virgin Australia Regional Airlines has historically tended to have higher rates of cancellations, I believe, than mainline Virgin. But for the month of March, and I've checked and double-checked this, for the month of March, out of the 194 flights, the 194 sectors scheduled for Virgin Australia Regional Airlines, the number cancelled was 0.
I think that does a round of applause.
It does.
That is very good to be. You can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Not a single cancellation.
Yeah, it's a small number of flights, sure, much smaller than anyone else. But to not have cancelled a single one is still impressive.
That's very good. That is very good. And obviously, we haven't got time to necessarily go back how many years, but in the time we've been doing it, we've never spotted any airline have no cancellations. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, so
Go on.
Virgin Australia Regional Airlines also beat mainline domestic Virgin on-time arrivals, 88.1% to Virgin Domestic's 81.0%. Just behind Virgin on-time departures, so 80.9 to mainline Virgin's 81.8. Both airlines beat Qantas individually on-time arrivals. I think VARA was slightly behind Qantas as well on-time departures. But for that 0% cancellation rate, that's a perfect month in terms of flight completions for VARA. I have to give the Huey Award for the month of March 2025 to VARA.
Hang on a minute. I'm not. Let's just calm it down a little bit. So you're saying to VARA, but VARA is part of a kind of a wider Virgin group.
Sure.
So previously we were considering airline groups, and now you've decided to rip up the T's and C's.
Well, I've given it to Qantas Link before.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
And I've given it to I've given it jointly in the past to Skytrans and Hinterland.
Yeah.
It's my award. I can do with it what I like.
Yeah,
and I choose to give it to VARA for this month.
I don't like the way
VARA.
you've scribbled it on there. It just, the way the handwriting, it looks like a serial killer, to be honest. It looks it's a bit sinister.
Yeah, it looks like.
Yeah.
But yeah, congratulations to VARA, Virgin Australia Regional Airlines. Your high rate of on-time arrivals, higher than anyone except Skytrans, and your 0% cancellation rate has earned you this month's Huey.
Congratulations, and I hope somebody at VARA gets a promotion for that. Right, let's
it's
go.
VARA nice.
Sorry, tell me
it's
again.
VARA nice.
Sorry, it's VARA nice.
It's VARA nice.
Is that meant to be very?
Yes.
But it's a different vowel. VARA, very, is totally different vowels. I did a degree in linguistics, so you little smart ass. On this one, I could. I actually did.
Are you saying it's not?
I actually did phonology and phonetics, so I'm actually an expert at this. Completely different vowel sounds.
Are you saying it's not an acceptable variation?
That was better. At least that kind of, not perfect, but at least that did sort of work. So we talked an awful lot of nonsense there before. We need to turn things around a little bit. Jake, have we got any kind of serious, hard-hitting news stories that we can talk about for our News Junkie
We probably
listeners?
should go a little bit further into detail on Boeing, because this is a bit of a nightmare for the US plane maker.
So this is basically this is the kind of a Trump-China tariff wars. And so from what I gather, China have basically said that they're not going to import Boeing. They're basically not going to take delivery of new Boeing aircraft and also the parts as well. Is this right?
Yeah.
So this is. So talk us a little bit more about this, because this seems like actually this is kind of an act of self-harm as much as anything else.
Yeah. So Boeing has reportedly told Chinese airlines to halt deliveries of Boeing. Beijing has told Chinese airlines to halt deliveries of Boeing aircraft. There have actually been a couple that I think were in China and were sent back to America, at least one. Now, there were, I think, 10 737 MAXs that were already made and getting ready to go to these Chinese airlines. And what's going to happen to them is, I would say up in the air, but probably more on the ground at the moment. And as well, as you say, there's also the Chinese government has apparently asked airlines to stop purchasing aircraft equipment and parts from US-based suppliers. So this kind of leaves the large Boeing fleet in China in something of a tricky position, because if you can't get aircraft parts from Boeing, where can you get them for your Boeing aircraft?
This is an extraordinary act of self-harm. Let's take out the wider geopolitics here, because I might seem like a different example, but we know that Rex, and one of the big problems that led Rex to go into administration is that they had a fleet of 60 Saabs, of which half of them were effectively out of action. One of the reasons for that is because these aircraft were so old, it was hard to get parts, right? So it slowed everything down. Now, clearly not quite the same, say, with a Boeing 737. But nonetheless, if you can't get access to parts, that has a potential over time to ground a lot of your aircraft. And it's also the case that it's, obviously, airlines will plan their next fleet of aircraft 10 years in advance. So if you suddenly say you're not allowed to bring in parts, unless you've got loads of them, stacked up, which they probably don't, so it's an extraordinary act to self-harm. It will mean huge problems from in China. Now, I understand this kind of tit-for-tat trade war, and I could also understand maybe not purchasing new aircraft or not making any new purchases, but to stop deliveries of aircraft that are pretty much already made or need to be made, to stop these parts as well. That seems like it's going to do enormous damage to China.
And to Boeing.
And to Boeing, yeah, obviously, and to Boeing as well. And the wider context here is that last year, Boeing had yet another year from hell. So off the top of my head, they had effectively their second worst year of financial results next to 2020, next to COVID.
No, I think it was the worst year, the biggest annual loss in history.
In history, right? So it's an absolute disaster.
Its own biggest annual loss in history.
And this happened, almost like everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Most notably, or the two most notable incidents were the door plug, effectively the door, blowing off a 737 MAX midair. And then they had all of these issues with Starliner, which is their kind of space program, or is their capsule and rocket, which was to be used to take astronauts to the ISS, which resulted in those two astronauts being effectively stranded on the ISS for 9 months in a kind of horrendous show of bad publicity. They fired their head of defense and space. They brought in a new CEO of Boeing who's been going in there trying to kind of turn things round. So it felt like Boeing was sort of turning a corner this year. They got the big contract from the president for the F-47. Basically this kind of a next generation fighter jet. So it felt like things were slowly turning around for Boeing. This is another big blow. Again, there's all these geopolitics at stake. But at the moment, Boeing are kind of trapped in the middle, and it's going to be an absolute disaster for them.
Yeah. A potential opportunity for Airbus.
Yep.
Airbus does, I think, have a 55% share of the Chinese market. So predominantly Airbus over there. But, of course, Airbus has also been hit by these supply chain issues that have been affecting Boeing. It doesn't have the same regulatory problems that Boeing has been having because, Boeing's production of Maxes has been capped at 38 per month, I think. So Airbus doesn't have that same production cap. There's not that kind of external mandated choke point on manufacturing, but still there is the supply chain issue. And you might think at first blush that this would be an opportunity as well for Comac, which is China's own homegrown plane maker that makes the C909 regional jet, formerly the ARJ21.
Great knowledge.
Thank you. And the C919, which is its competitor with the A320neo and the 737 MAX.
Exceptional knowledge.
Thank you. But the trouble for Comac is that so many of its parts come from overseas, particularly the engines. The engines are made by CFM.
Vital component.
Yeah, you need those. The engines are made by CFM, and CFM is a joint French-US company. And some of the parts for those engines are put together in Ohio.
Yeah.
So, there you go. China has been working on a company that will make its own aircraft engines, but the parts that they get for the C919 for the US, if they've got, ridiculous tariffs slapped on them, and also if they can't get those parts in the first place, that's not going to be good for Comac.
But this whole tariff thing, I don't want to go on like a geopolitical rant. This whole tariff thing is absolutely ridiculous because firstly, when they call them a tariff, what that means in real terms is an import tax. You are taxing your own people. So you're actually costing your own company money. Secondly,
they've tried to tell Trump that.
Yeah, no. Now, secondly, I understand that the point of it, whether we agree or not, is to encourage long-term more manufacturing into the US. I completely get that. But the nature of how things work, particularly now, it's a globalized world and parts of everything are made all over the world. And you can't just turn that on and off. It's like with the iPhone. You can't just decide overnight we're going to make it all in the US because they are reliant on factories and stuff all over the world. It's the same thing with aviation as well, particularly for big aircraft. There are supply chains that mean that it's not all perfectly made in one, wholesome US factory. Sometimes the kind of expertise, the knowledge might be scattered all around the world. So you just can't take 40, 50 years of aviation manufacturing, how it works, and just decide on the click of the finger you're going to change things. This whole thing has the potential to be an absolute disaster. What it will result in, ultimately, is less flights, higher ticket prices. It's going to upset an awful lot of people. I do hope this madness ends soon. I kind of think everyone's assuming after a few months it will do. Obviously, the US will globally probably try to strike deals with other countries. But this whole China-US thing, they're really dug in deep. This is the problem with it, because they really hate each other. And the worry is for Boeing that this goes on and on and on.
Well, and as well, this whole carrot and stick approach, it's all stick at the moment. It's like... if you want to encourage manufacturing into your country, you have to offer incentives as well. You can't just slap tariffs on everything and try to force people to make, because we're going to build such great factories. We're going to build huge factories in America. Okay, with what machinery?
Yeah.
Well, we'll make the machinery here too. Okay, where are you going to get the machinery to make that machinery? At some point you have to, in this day and age, you have to get stuff from overseas. You can't just make or at least it would take years and years and years and years and years to actually make everything that you need in your country. When the Biden administration wanted to encourage semiconductor and processor manufacturing in America, he did the CHIPS Act, which was encouraging these companies to move factories to America and giving incentives and giving government assistance to get these factories up and running. Whereas with the current administration, it's just you will build your factories in our country or you will be smacked with giant tariffs. That's not the art of the deal.
No, it just seems, the other thing that's interesting, having followed COVID is a news
disclaimer.
group.
I'm not an economist.
Having followed COVID as well, you think that after sort of 18 months, say the UK and a lot of Europe opened up, probably took Australia another kind of 6 months. It was really a kind of 2-year thing for Australia to kind of fully start to open up. China was basically having lockdowns or was having restrictions and had shut their borders for another year after that. So the Chinese government were more than happy to shut that country down for 3 whole years. So the Chinese kind of administrations or whatever ability to soak up pain and their willingness to do that, they don't care. They don't care. Unfortunately, the American public are going to get very, 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 very angry, and that's going to be very hard for Trump to deal with. Whereas I think with China, they don't care. They're literally. I get the impression they would rather lose everything than lose face in this trade war.
Well, the other thing is as well, it's some people have been saying, I think China's going to blink first. I don't think China can survive this. Well, China is involved in a trade war with the United States, whereas the United States is involved in a trade war with the entire planet at the same time.
Yeah.
As they say in Babylon 5, only an idiot fights a war on 2 fronts at once. Only the heir to the kingdom of idiots fights a war on 15 fronts at once, or something like that. So, fighting a trade war with the entire planet is a great way to lose a trade war. But we're getting into geopolitics.
We are. And it's not the Defence Connect podcast. It's the Australian Aviation Podcast. Right, let's take this back down or up to aviation. What do we got? What do we got next?
Well, I mean, on the subject of international connections, we did get...
Nice link. I like that,
you.
because that could have been anything, but go on.
Could have been anything, but in fact, it's this. January this year, January 2025, Australia saw an all-time monthly high for international passenger traffic.
What? Like not just post-COVID, like forever?
Ever. According to the latest Bitra data, 4.37 million international passengers travelled through Australian airports in January this year. And that was 5.3% higher than the previous peak in January 2020, right before COVID hit. Now, international passenger for the year ending January 25, international passenger numbers were up 14.5% year on year, but that was still below the period ending 2020. So we've had our best month for international travel, international airline travel that we've ever had, but still for the full year, it's still a little bit below pre-COVID levels.
But it's still kind of like these, I say the green shoots recovery, we're probably beyond that. Yeah. But it does, it feels extraordinary that it took so long to get over COVID, but now we're getting to the stage where, they say the graph is always going up and it went down for a while. Now it's kind of, we're getting to the point as if COVID didn't happen and we're continuing to grow again. I know a lot of this, there's lots of different schemes. There's a lot of kind of sort of state supplementary flights or schemes that are running in order to encourage international aviation to come back. But it is a very good sign. It's a particularly important sign, given that you've got a new Western Sydney International. You had Brisbane Airport with its second runway or its new runway. You got Melbourne Airport, in the midst of doing a big kind of upgrade. So it's good to see that these things are going to work, but we are seeing more international travel. It's also good for Australia as a whole too, because for so long, Australia, obviously kind of in the corner of the world, if you want to say that, it does open up Australia again massively. So it is very, very good news.
Yeah, and the Asia-Pacific market, travel market in particular, has been accelerating at a rapid pace. This is according to Simon Westaway, the chief executive of the Australian Airports Association, who said that, I think, 26% rise in international traffic last year. And this is coming, by the way, as Malaysia Airlines is announcing big ramp-ups of its Australian capacity, because we've got, starting next year, an open skies agreement with Malaysia, which basically means that Malaysian airlines... Not just Malaysia Airlines, but airlines from Malaysia can fly as many planes into and out of Australia as they like. There are no more restrictions on Malaysian flights. The same is going to apply to Canada. And so Malaysia Airlines, for starters, they are coming back to Brisbane Airport. So they're relaunching a service from Kuala Lumpur to Brisbane that previously operated pre-COVID. They are also set to expand their flights to Sydney and Melbourne. So in Sydney, there's going to be a third daily service to Kuala Lumpur starting later this year, which will bring the total capacity on the route to more than 630,000 seats per year. That is the highest of any Australian airport. And then over in Melbourne, Malaysia Airlines will introduce third daily flights from August. And by the end of the year, it's going to operate all of its 21 weekly flights from Melbourne with new Airbus A330neo aircraft. And this will add 216,000 seats per year between Melbourne and Kuala Lumpur. So ahead of this Open Skies agreement coming into place, the cap was lifted from 36,000 weekly seats to 50,000 into major Australian cities. That was in November. And so the Open Skies agreement comes into effect next year. And so we could see even more growth from Malaysia, which is as well a major Asian travel hub. You can connect through Kuala Lumpur to a lot of places around the Asia-Pacific region and also potentially onto Europe. Yeah,
so good news. Okay, welcome back. So we spoke there a little bit before about how international travel is really kind of turned a corner now. We're not just better than pre-COVID, we're kind of heading to the best figures ever. What's up next to talk about, Jake?
We were talking about international travel, and Qantas had a very important milestone.
Your links are really good this week. It's seamless. Go on, sorry.
That's what the sausage maker's wife said to him. About his sausages.
Explain that. Explain that. Oh, really, I see. The links and sausages,
Anyway, Qantas on the 17th of April celebrated 90 years of international flying. So
you sounded like one of those kind of like, when they do like the old Hollywood movies and 90 years. You actually said this in the office, where I got the idea from.
Yeah. Yeah, Qantas last on the 17th of April celebrated 90 years of international flying. And this is from the press release, marking an incredible milestone in the evolution of the aviation industry and 9 decades of connecting Australia with the world.
Can you just do the whole thing in that voice? It's brilliant. Right.
On 17 April 1935, Qantas operated Australia's first international passenger flight from Brisbane to Singapore, carrying 2 customers on a DH-86 aircraft. The flight took 3.5 days with 16 stops along the way. Almost a century later, over 273 million customers have flown across the Qantas international network, which now spans 56 routes to 34 destinations in 25 countries around the world.
That's really good. I like that. That's really good.
Production team, when we do the YouTube short for that, can we get like the old like newsreel style music over that and like get it in black and white maybe?
Have you seen the movie Up? Right.
I have seen the movie.
Yeah,
Up.
so that's the legendary sort of scene at the start where they have the old voiceover. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, but it would have been a hell of a trip.
Yeah.
16 stops over 3.5 days to get from Brisbane to Singapore.
6, yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot. You have to have a bit of money as well to do that.
And they've put up a whole bunch of photos of historical Qantas aircraft, and never before seen video content. It's really really interesting the history of Qantas and the history of the international flights. I mean we spoke a couple of weeks ago about the anniversary of its Trans-Tasman flights, which used to be done on flying boats and took I think 9 hours. So it was. It's been a hell of a ride, and we're as it says, we're almost up to a century of Qantas international flying.
It's interesting because Qantas, and since I've been doing this show, constantly get a lot of stick. But in terms of the way they kind of remember their history and they celebrate their history, they've always been absolutely fantastic at that. And it's definitely a lot of people at Qantas. I think there's like the Qantas archives who are very, very precious about this stuff. They really, really adore it. In terms of the way just they look after their old aircraft as well, they really do care. And I think one of the reasons for this is that Qantas is such an important part of Australian history in a way that almost no other country kind of loves, or their airliners are so important. And it is obviously the fact that because Australia, as I said before, we are to an extent in a corner of the world, aviation is so important. But yeah, it's a very, very, very important milestone that.
It is, and congratulations to Qantas. I mean, I've gone down to Haas and I've seen the big 747 that they have down there. And you can go around, you can sit in the seats and they give you a tour. I got to sit in Qantas business class again briefly when I was down there. But someone's remarked, I think it was in an article in the Oz, that you could basically like oil that up and fuel it up and fly it out of there tomorrow. That 747. So it's a great thing that Qantas takes such good care of its old aircraft, and that other societies around Australia do as well, because it's whether you like Qantas or not, it's been a pretty big and important part of the country's history.
Yeah, well done. Hats off to the flying kangaroo. Right, have we got one more story to finish up the show?
Yeah, well, speaking of national airlines, we have good news out of Air New Zealand, which has got its first retrofitted 7879 Dreamliner. Now, apparently, according to Air New Zealand, this is the first time anyone has completely refitted a Dreamliner 7879 from nose to tail. So they've ripped out the old cabin. They've put in this new cabin with its new Business Premier Luxe product. It's got the redesigned economy and premium economy seats.
Has it got the bunk beds?
No. Skynest is coming later.
Right, okay.
So Skynest is coming on its new fleet of 787s, which is supposed to be arriving this year, I think. So it hasn't got Skynest, but it has got the new business products, new economy, new premium economy. And there's going to be, according to Jeremy O'Brien, the Chief Commercial Officer, there's going to be some final preparations, testing of the new in-flight entertainment system, full crew ground trial to rehearse the onboard service, and it should be flying for the first time in mid-May.
Nice. That's good. Oh.
All 14. So this is all 14 of the existing 787-9s that Air New Zealand has. Skynest, the sleeping pods, is going to be on the 8 new Dreamliners expected to arrive from this year.
Yeah.
All 14 of its existing Dreamliners are expected to be finished with the retrofits by the end of next year, with the second one already undergoing work in Singapore.
Yeah, and I suppose it is probably the first time an airline has retrofitted it because it's still a relatively new aircraft.
Yeah.
But it's similar to what Qantas are doing with retrofitting their 737s before they get...
And Jetstar as well is overhauling its 7878 Dreamliners, which is the shorter variant. Interesting note on the 7878s, actually. I believe that China Southern was planning to auction off its fleet, but has had to put the brakes on that. And keep flying at 7878s because of this whole Boeing situation.
So what I would say, and Qantas has done a similar thing before, right? So if you are working for Air New Zealand, you listen to this show, which I'm assuming they will do. If you've got any bits from not the old aircraft, but any of the bits you ripped out, you want to send them to us. We'd love that. What I particularly want is let's
get some business class chairs from the Air New Zealand plane in the studio. Just sit here in business class chairs.
That would be great. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, business class chairs. That would be really good. Also, you got like a drinks trolley.
Yeah,
I really want one of them. That would be good. If you can send us, if you're from Air New Zealand, if you somehow, it costs a lot of money to ship it here. If you want to send us business class seats, a drinks trolley, any kind of trinkets you ripped out, we'll 100% get this among our fleet. And if we got the seats, we'd absolutely sit in them.
Yeah,
because we could. That would be amazing. Do you like him when they did Top Gear and they used to have like
I thought you were going to say Top Gun for a moment.
Not Top Gun. No, I should have done. But in Top Gear, they'd have like actual car seats that they'd sit in and stuff and little trinkets. If we had business class seats, that would be fantastic. And you could maybe we could just lie back as well.
Yeah, But when those if and when those China Southern 7878 Dreamliners go back on the market, it will be interesting to see what happens to them, because I know that Qantas is in need of more planes as part of its fleet renewal. They could look at picking up those 7878s when they go back on sale, maybe to expand the Jetstar fleet.
Yep.
Or to, maybe have a stopgap while it waits for more of its own Dreamliners to come across. And it'll be interesting as well to see what's going to happen to those MAX 8s or the 737 MAXs that have already been made for Chinese airlines. I think there was supposed to be 27 MAXs going to China this year, 10 of them already made. Could be opportunities for Virgin, depending on how Boeing decides to sort that out.
Aircraft at the moment, any kind of airliner, they are hard to come by. So I'd imagine that you get a good price for those, and there's a bit of a fight over them. Right, that's probably about time. Is it? Do you reckon that's it?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I was hoping you'd be like, I've got one more thing to pull out of my hat or whatever.
Well, I mean, you could talk about that space balloon.
I could do, actually. Yes. Yeah, good. What you've done there is you've pulled something out of the hat, but you've thrown it at me. And I hate talking about it.
And now it's just all over your face.
Yeah, this is actually a really good story. It's actually when I started doing Australian aviation, and I wondered, are hot air balloons, are they on our patch? They actually are, because technically speaking, a hot air balloon is an aircraft. So if it is a balloon, we do balloon stories. So NASA have been launching these, not hot air balloons, but they are scientific balloons from New Zealand for the past kind of 10 years. So they've done 6, I think, in total. We had a 7th launch. I think it's a 7th launch, maybe it's a 6th launch from New Zealand, from the South Island. But these balloons are incredible because rather than being like hot air balloons, they effectively are kind of, and I'm going to bodge the science here, they're kind of sealed up in a way that they can kind of float, or they can ascend to 110,000 feet, which is roughly 3 times the kind of height that a commercial airliner travels at. But also, as it goes up, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And these balloons are basically the size of a football stadium. They're absolutely enormous. And they
love catching a train from the football stadium.
But they go up there, and this will travel for 100 days, which is already incredible, the fact that it can go for that long. And they will use it to do all kinds of, they're kind of testing a part of the Earth's upper atmosphere called the ionosphere. And the reason it's important to test
Ionosphere, I think.
Yeah, that makes me look really bad. Maybe I'm just saying it British correctly.
An iron sphere would be like a giant metal ball.
So what is it, the ionosphere?
The ionosphere.
If I said this on the Space Connect podcast, I'll get fired. But I think we're among friends here. It'd be fine. But basically, this is kind of the part of the atmosphere which is very important to communication. So NASA are going up there, doing all sorts of tests. We ran the story in Australian Aviation as well. It's worth checking it out because as well as seeing pictures of the balloon, you can actually track it as well. There's a link you can press and you can see where in the world it's going to be. So it's kind of moved away from us a little bit at the moment, but I think it could potentially come back. NASA reckons there might be points where you can actually see it, which would be absolutely extraordinary. So yeah, there you go. NASA balloon. That's a kind of ending on a high note, because it's a high note because it's really high. That's good, isn't it?
Hopefully it'll inflate our viewer numbers.
Yeah, excellent. Well, we can't peak that. On that note, I will...
And this podcast will blow up.
And this podcast, well, it's not going to blow up, is it? Oh, because it will blow. You blow up is when, yeah. Anyway, I'm rambling now. Jake, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you very much for listening, viewing. We will be back on this show talking more drivel the same time next week. But for now, from me and Jake, goodbye.
Goodbye.